Welcome to Straight Talk and Retirement. Your no-hype source for financial advice and making informed choices about your retirement plan. Get on the phone to talk today at 314-931-5877 or text your question to 84126.
The opinions voiced in this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, and financial advisor or tax advisor prior to investing. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through Private Advisor Group, a registered investment advisor. Private Advisor Group and JBL Financial Services, Inc. are separate entities from LPL Financial.
Now, here are your retirement coaches, Jeff and Aaron Lapidus.
Well, hello, St. Louis, and welcome to Straight Talk on Retirement. You're live and local, St. Louis's favorite financial call-in show. I'm Jeff Lapidus, the previous president of JBL Financial Services. I'm a 40-year veteran of the financial services area, a fee-based financial planner and wealth manager. And I'm joined by my incredibly capable crew. My oldest prodigal daughter, our president, Aaron Lapidus, who also is a certified financial planner and wealth manager. And my son-in-law, Rob Markham, our life insurance and fixed annuity sales specialist, as well as also being a fee-based financial planner and wealth manager.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We help our clients make smart choices about their money. The way we do that is by designing a game plan, a real strategy, a step-by-step strategy that has several goals in mind.
First is to preserve, protect, and prudently grow the assets our clients have taken their entire lifetimes to accumulate.
Second is to deliver a reliable source of income, one they can rely on, so they can do all the things they want to do in retirement.
And third is cost-effectively addressing their health care needs, like helping individuals enroll in Medicare and choosing the right plan to couple with their Medicare coverage.
And then when they're done enjoying their assets during their lifetime, we show them how to pass them on to the people they love, whether it's their spouses or children, grandchildren, churches, or charities, whoever it might be, without Uncle Sam or the tax courts taking a big bite out of their money. And as their wealth managers, Aaron, Rob, and I watch their money every single day to make sure they're staying on track. And that's why they call us the retirement coaches. Folks, again, good morning. Thanks so much for tuning into our 2-hour spectacular show. We really do appreciate you doing that. And just as a reminder, all of our clients are folks like you. They're listeners. They're 55 and older. They would like to retire, or they're already retired. And as Aaron mentioned, we create a game plan for them that have the goals of a fun, financially successful, and hopefully less worrisome retirement.
Less worrisome. Well, there are several ways that you can stay in touch with us throughout the week. You can log on to our website, jblfinancial.com. In the upper right-hand corner, you can click on the Contact Us button and request a coaching session, financial, Medicare, or both. Or in the lower left-hand side of the screen, there's a pop-up box that'll appear. It says, sign up for our monthly newsletter. We call it the Coach's Corner, and because I believe it's August 3rd.
We are just zipping by. We'll be in September soon.
But not until we hear about what's in the August newsletter.
Absolutely. And we've got a new August 2024 newsletter. I got some great articles in there for you. The first one being Just Your Average Next Door Millionaire. The average net worth of U.S. families surpassed $1 million for the first time in 2022. The milestone does not mean that the typical American family are millionaires. However, the growth of U.S. families' net worth was the largest on record, and there's a great little infographic there so you can see how this breaks down by cohort and age group. And our next article, 8 great investing quotes. You know, investing can be challenging, whether you're a seasoned vet or a novice. It's easy to lose confidence if things turn south, or on the flip side of that, to get caught up in irrational exuberance when things are going well. With that in mind, this article leaves you with 8 great investing quotes that hopefully will give you some perspective in good markets and bad. And one quote I wanted to just highlight was, know what you own and know why you own it. And that was by Peter Lynch. I think that's very prescient. You should know what you own. You should know what's in your portfolio, and better still, why it's in there and what purpose it serves.
Oh, I mean, I wish we would have put one of your quotes in here, Dad. Every asset has a function.
There you go. Well, the folks that have listened to these over the years, so they can appreciate that. But you're right.
But I actually keyed in on my favorite, and maybe very timely based on what happened over the last week. Don't try to buy at the bottom and sell at the top. It can't be done except by liars.
And who brought us that great one?
Bernard Barch, investor and presidential advisor.
I think he wrote a great book. It was called The Fight for Financial Survival. It was just that title grabs you by the lapels.
Yeah, there's no question that this week was a roller coaster, right?
Well,
we started at the top, and as the week progressed, things got a little bit
that
dicey.
just means there's only. Hey, eventually, what goes down comes back up.
I mean, in fairness, we've been on a nice 20-month run since January of 2023. So, I mean, and just a couple weeks ago, we were hitting record highs every other day. I mean, you got to have a
breather.
Yeah, you got to consolidate those gains. It can't just go, straight up vertically.
Very true.
And our next article, excuse me. Thinking of selling your home? Don't be surprised by capital gains taxes. The Taxpayer Relief Act of 1997 provided homeowners who sell their primary residence an exclusion from cap gains of $250,000 for single filers and $500,000 for joint filers. At the time, the price of a new home was $145,000, so the exclusion seemed generous and allowed people to freely move from one property to another. Unfortunately, the exclusion wasn't indexed to inflation, and what seemed generous in 1997 can seem restrictive in 2024. Having said that, this is a great article that highlights how to qualify for the full exclusion, increasing your basis for lowering taxes paid, and provide some insight into what this means for people who inherit a home. And there's a nice little example there, a little mock example showing you how some of these deductions and exclusions would work vis-a-vis your cost basis in a home in a hypothetical situation in which you were selling. It's a great article. And our last one, the IRS wants to know more info about your gig income. If you earn money through a payment app or marketplace, you may be affected by some changes in the tax. You may be affected by some nuances in the tax changes enacted by the 2021 American Rescue Plan. The law requires third parties to now report business transactions totaling over $600 per year. The previous reporting threshold was $20,000 and 200 business transactions. This is a timely and informative piece that you will definitely want to read if you participate in the gig economy. Do not want to do anything that throws up a red flag to the IRS. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is your August 2024 newsletter.
Awesome. You can get it by going to our website, jblfinancial.com. Click on that icon on the lower left-hand side of the screen that pops up. I think it pops up on every page you visit, so many opportunities to have the newsletter delivered to your email once a month, or you can log on to the website in the newsletter section and take a look at past newsletters that have already been published.
Yes, you can. And what's nice is that we're live and local. Our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you. 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the KTRS text line. And I will tell you that during this week, a lot of emails, a lot of texts, specifically because, as you know, we've been running a commercial during the Olympics.
And if you have been watching the Olympics,
yes, then you have seen us.
Most likely.
You would have seen our commercial at least 40 times. And also, Erin made her television debut. Great day, St. Louis.
It was a great day.
JBL is just dominating the public media, TV,
right.
Radio,
all
commercials,
airwaves, radio waves.
And, it was really fun. I received a lot of fun comments from our clients as well as other folks, friends that saw this and said, smart putting the good-looking one on TV. I said, okay, it's easy. That was easy. You did very well, which is nice. So you never know. This could become a Maybe the beginning.
Of a TV show?
Why not? I've dreamed about that.
A TV show?
Yeah, a financial TV show. Why not? Have a little fun.
That sounds like the thoughts are just spinning here as to what we would do on TV.
Well, the problem that we have generally is we're not allowed to have anybody to talk. No one's permitted to talk. And but that's compliance. But in either case, we'd love to hear from you. Our phone lines are open, 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line. Whether you have questions about investing, about IRAs, taxes, wills, trusts, whatever it would be. The know-it-alls are in the studio. We'd love to hear from you.
Maybe we could do like a simulcast where people could watch us doing the show.
We've done that in the past
on Facebook Live before.
Yes,
yeah, we tried that out.
We could try, but
any suggestions? We're open.
We certainly are. So again, while we're waiting for your phone calls and texts at 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line. I'd like to delve into a subject. I guess this will be a little bit of, we'll call it an educational segment here in regard to pension planning. Doesn't go by 4 or 5, well, at least once a week. We have folks that are involved in pension plans. They're working for hospitals. They're working for public companies. And many of them have an opportunity to either, and they're required to at some point, elect either a income stream or a lump sum distribution. So I thought it might be good, before we go into a specific example, coaching session that we had this week, is just to talk a little bit about pension plans and sort of, like we like to do, let's demystify this a little bit.
Let's start from the top. What is a pension plan?
Well, I like to think of a pension plan as a fish tank.
A lake.
A lake.
Okay.
Fish tank, something that's holding water. And the fish that are in this water are the participants in the plan.
Might be one of you.
Exactly. And what happens is these fish are either male fish or female fish.
Okay.
Pretty simple.
We wanted to get that out of the way.
There are only two sexes, male or female.
Let's keep it to the pension plan.
Which basically actually have nothing to do with the formula per se. But what happens is each fish is a different size. And that size is really determined by
the pension plan's formula, right?
Well, the formula, but also that formula, again, has a basis, which is based upon your income, the number of years that you're going to be working at the company, years of service, etc. Those are the two big factors to determine how big of a fish you will be in that pond. Because really, a pension plan is probably one of the most complicated algebra problems that there is. What it comes down to, again, is there is a formula. And typically, that formula will say 1% to anywhere to 2% times the number of years of service that you have.
Times your pay.
Exactly, based on an average of, let's say, 3 to 5 years worth of your pay. And that number then is then expanded to typically retirement age, which is considered in most plans age 65. Mm-hmm. So that comes out with an algebraic number.
This is what actuaries are for, right?
Exactly, which are real math geeks. I mean, that's their big thing.
Right.
And so that comes out with a number, the size of the fish, which then can either be converted into either a lump sum or into an income stream, which you can take during your life, and if you happen to be married, and or your spouse's life. Generally, the payments that are received from these plans are fixed. They're not always fixed. Some plans have cost of living adjustments. Very few of them do. And we know that the payout of benefits, if you do assume a income stream, we can call that an annuity because that's what an annuity is an income stream, will end at not necessarily the participant's death, but the participant and their surviving spouse's death.
Depending upon the election that they made.
Right.
Before they began.
Yes, and you do have a whole bunch of elections which start from the highest payout, which is, we call it a life-only payout, which is based on the life expectancy of the participant. Only. And then you go to a whole variety of benefits that are based upon having a spouse. It could be 100% to the spouse, surviving spouse, which would be a lower benefit. It could be 20.
That's the lowest benefit usually, right? 100% if you elect the 100%
yes.
to the surviving
right.
spouse.
And then increasing from there, 25% to the spouse, 75% to the spouse, 66% to the spouse, 50%
and when we're talking
to the spouse.
about those percentages, it's whatever the participant's annuity amount is, only that percentage the surviving spouse will receive. So
yes,
if you're getting $1,000 a month and you elect 25% to the survivor, they're going to get $250 a month.
In that option.
If you elected a 25%.
In that option. Now, the life-only option might be $1,250 a month because you didn't have any surviving spouse. But again, it's an algebra problem. So what happens is that when we're looking at these, the question folks have is, what's a better deal for me? And that's not easy to define, but we do have a couple of benchmarks that we use. Right, Rob?
We do. And the first one being you would take the monthly income amount. Say you were getting $2,000 a month, you would scale that up over the full year. That would be $24,000, and you would divide that number by whatever the lump sum amount, and that would give you the percentage, the payout percentage of the annuity. And
Right,
no,
so
go
the
ahead.
first important thing is what is the payout rate,
Right.
which is the calculation
And
they've given us.
our over and under is around 7%. If you're north of 7% or at 7%, it's considered, that's pretty decent.
So that would be a check mark in the annuity box.
Right. If you're below 7%,
might be a check mark. I like to think of this, Dad. You taught me about I think it's called the Benjamin Franklin close, where you put all of the criteria up on the board. Then you put your two options, lump sum or annuity in this example, and we're just going to put check marks in each box. So in Rob's first benchmark, payout rate.
Yeah.
Over 7, maybe we look at the annuity, we put the check mark in that box. Under 7, maybe we're putting it in
And,
the lump
it
sum.
isn't a one-size-fits-all approach. So, the payout could be 6.5% or even 6%. But if that person needed the income to make their retirement game plan work, if there was an income need, we would certainly, we wouldn't shy away from taking the annuity just because it was a percentage point less on the payout rate. So
Which is another one that we'll want to add to the list.
Absolutely.
So let's add a wrinkle. And this is a big one.
Big wrinkle.
Which is interest rates.
Current interest rates.
We know that the lump sum of a pension payout is actually the net present value, which means the value of that income stream discounted back to a single sum. The plan also has an assumed rate of interest or return on the investments in the pool. Okay? So what happens is as interest rates rise, the lump sum amount that you need goes down.
Or the lump sum amount that they offer you is going to go down.
That's correct. It's going to go down.
And many people, especially when interest rates initially started to rise, were seeing revisions to their lump sum offers or announcements that there would be revisions to their lump sum offers within a certain amount of time. So people, maybe about 2 years ago, we were seeing people forced to make decisions or felt like they were forced to make decisions because they knew that lump sum was about to be discounted.
Well, and also with most plans, you cannot elect that option unless you terminate your employment.
Right. Right. So people were having to make retirement decisions.
Well, that's right. And then there are also,
like
there are folks certainly, and we saw this with Ma Bell, okay, Ma Bell, which was many of our clients in the past. The company would come back and do a buyout offer for those that were actually receiving annuity payments, and they said, "Well, we'll give you a lump sum amount." So they got to, in some cases, do a redo. That offer obviously changed as interest rates rose. Now we're in a situation today where, look, rates are going to go up and down. It's based upon the economy. We know that the data and what really drove, I think, Friday's market change, weakening, was that the job market's weakening.
Right.
We're seeing that happen. And the Federal Reserve, the way that they assist with monetary policy is by lowering interest rates. So that's something that we would look at. And that obviously we didn't see interest rates rise for almost 10 years. Then they rose historically over an 18-month period, and now we may be looking at a revision. So not easy decisions to make in the environment. Usually what happens is plans will make these assumption changes once a year, usually in December.
Right, and then they give you a certain amount of time to make your decision.
Exactly. And so that's kind of important to do. So let's talk about some of the factors about that are other than monetary, maybe, that people might consider in terms of taking a lump sum versus taking a payout.
Do you want the opportunity to pass the assets on to the kids?
That's the big one. That really is the big one. Do I want to take the chance, or do I need or can I have an opportunity to pass this on? Because we know that pensions end at the death of the participant, and if they have a spouse, the participant's spouse. Right.
Generally, there are no provisions to allow a participant to pass the annuity, so the monthly income, onto anyone other than a spouse. So you can't pass it on to the kids or a child or a niece or a nephew or anything like that.
Health of the participant or health of the spouse.
Very, very important.
Because you're thinking about longevity. How long is it, this is like the same idea as Social Security. How long is it going to take to recoup your money over the course of time? That lump sum offer, if you feel as though your longevity is truncated, you might say that you would want to look at the lump sum offer, or that your spouse's longevity is truncated. Maybe you're looking at a different payout rate based on those factors, different annuity option based on those factors.
Exactly. And again, this is why each situation is different and has to be looked at in a different way. So the monetary rules of thumb, which is, are we meeting the 7% test?
That's payout rate.
That's the payout rate. The next thing we're really looking at is, if I do elect a fixed stream of income for either my life and or a spouse's life also, does this fit my game plan?
Is this the amount of income I need? Is this helping me cover the amount of income I need every month, or is this possibly more than I need every month? We need to kind of factor that in.
Right. And obviously then it also becomes, can my advisor, if I have one, create or develop an option for me to duplicate this payout or replace this payout?
Interesting. So, I mean, you could have a situation where, say, they're offering $2,000 a month in a annuity pension benefit, but you only need $500 or $600. So it could be like, hey, Jeff, I mean, if I take the lump sum, can you take a portion of that lump sum and recreate what I need when I need it?
Exactly, and that's something that certainly that we've talked about that we can do. Again, I hope that discussion was okay for you.
Well, I think it leads into, when we come back from our first break of the hour, us using an example of putting these tests into place, going through.
With our friends Joe and Sally.
Right.
And we will talk about them right after these messages.
Let's talk about smart choices for your money. It's Straight Talk and Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are your retirement coaches, Jeff and Aaron Lapidus.
Well, welcome back to Straight Talk on Retirement. It's 9:32 here on the Big 550 KTRS. Our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you. 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line. During our last segment, we were having a discussion about pension plans. Sort of how do they work? What are some of the options? How do they affect you? And so I know that Rob, you and Aaron had a fun coaching session with some prospective clients last week. So tell us a little about it.
We were lucky enough to meet with Joe, who is 63, and his wife, Sally. She's 59. They both work for a large local electric utility company. And, Joe is the guy where a big storm comes through and, things, your power went out, they got some lines down, and he's the guy out there that you see working to restore power. He's either in the bucket, up on the pole, God bless him, or he's got the ladder out and he's up there.
He's climbing on things?
He's climbing up. He's making sure that all the I's are dotted, T's are crossed, and that your electric and air conditioning, which I know you love, will return swiftly. So I can't say enough about those guys.
Listen, I love air conditioning. And I have been proven correct time and again that other intelligent individuals also appreciate the value of air conditioning. I even heard a quote, you can laugh all you want, I even heard a comment that the genesis of modern civilization is air conditioning. So you had the opportunity to work inside without wanting to die.
This is coming from the girl that said, I want to go to camp where I don't have to sweat.
A walk and sweat. Thank you very much.
Okay. So
I like comfort. And I think many of our listeners also enjoy comfort on many levels as well.
Well, we pay
especially this week.
Right.
This week's been pretty brutal.
We pay homage to Joe that works hard in all kinds of inclement weather to make sure that
I get my AC.
You get your comfort.
But I have a right to it.
And Joe would like to retire in 60 days. And, he's getting a little bit long in the tooth to be, getting in that bucket and climbing up those ladders. And Sally would like to continue for another 2 years. And Joe has been a phenomenal saver in his 401k. He's amassed $1.24 million in his 401k. And Sally pieced together $520,000. And they both have pensions and Social Security benefits available. So.
Wow, so they've got fixed income, they've got a nice source of assets, too. That's fabulous.
It is. But we have one issue. Do we take the pension benefit as an income stream or a lump sum?
That's a great initial question.
Well, I think we need to really take a look at them again as what's their game plan. And we know that their goal right now is they need $8,000 per month, and this is because they have a mortgage. Otherwise, it would be much lower. Sally's income while she's working is about $3,000 a month, and we know that Joe's pension when he retires in 60 days will be about $2,800 a month. So they're still short about $2,200 a month or $26,600 per year. Joe's Social Security, if he was to take it at 63, his current age, is $2,700 per month. Woo-hoo.
Sweet.
He's a rock star. And Sally's Social Security benefit when she retires is going to be $1,700 a month. It's at 62, which is about half of her income.
Because Sally, I don't know if we mentioned Sally's 59. So
59,
they're about four. So Sally's 59 right now, so she's got a few years to wait, but she's planning to work a few years still.
So right about the time she's ready to retire, one faucet goes off, another one potentially could come on.
Right.
Right, so there are some real questions here, obviously, and they have options. So let's talk about what some of their options are. After Joe transfers his 401k to a self-directed IRA, which will be a tax-free transfer, he could, if he wanted to, begin to make monthly distributions to make up that $2,200 a month deficit while putting off taking his Social Security benefit so that it could grow. And there's obviously some reasons why that might make sense for him.
There are. I mean, if Joe was going to go back to work, even if he was going to, like I can't sit at the house all the time. I want to, still do a little something. I don't want to get up ladders. Right, and I don't want to be in a bucket, but, I still have some tread on the tires. Not turning on Social Security and using his retirement accounts to fund that deficit could make a lot of sense.
Certainly another reason is because we know that should Joe predecease Sally will lose her Social Security benefit, which is smaller at $1,700. She would take Joe's, but
we might want to bump up Joe's benefit to help cover over some of Sally's loss of benefit.
Absolutely, and that makes a lot of sense. They also could use a portion of their after-tax savings, which we haven't really even talked about here, as a way to fund and assist funding their current monthly benefit. One other option I was just thinking about myself this moment is, Sally is also making contributions to her 401k plan. Mm-hmm. Normally, we would think that if one spouse is retired and they're not really needing the money, this could be an opportunity for them to scale up Sally's contributions to maximize that tax deductibility. But in their case, maybe what they're doing is they're going the other way.
Stopping Sally's contribution.
Or only doing
to
it
the match.
Only to the match so that they have that extra tax income, et cetera, because they don't really need to grow the capital for later.
Right. They've already amassed enough capital to make their income work, so now it's time to diversify their assets. And we're not talking about how they're invested, but literally how they're taxed. So many people, I would say the majority of our clients, have the majority of their assets in retirement plans because you all did exactly what you thought was right, which was you took advantage of pre-tax savings, you took advantage of employer matching in your retirement plans. You didn't have the opportunity to save as much outside. So now on the other side for Joe and Sally, maybe over the next 2 years, we're taking her excess contribution, so everything above the match, taking it home and putting it in the savings account to build up some after-tax assets.
The great thing about Joe and Sally is they have phenomenal options. They can turn on their Social Security. They can fund their deficit through withdrawals from the retirement account. Or, as Jeff just said, and we haven't talked about it, they are after-tax savings. So it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. They could certainly turn down their contribution, or Sally could turn down her contributions at work. So, they have a lot of options, which is great.
Exactly. And, Rob, one of the final options that you had discussed during our last segment was they could take Joe's pension benefit as a lump sum and then reconfigure it in such a way so that part of it is going to savings, but the other side is actually going to a pension. So not necessarily accepting that $2,800 a month, which would be too much, but really getting it to the right size. And that's not necessarily a bad deal either. And doing that at Sally's retirement. So lots of options, lots of questions, and at the end of the day, maybe the most, or one of the biggest drivers, I would say, with folks is asking that question, which is, do you want to pass the lump sum, or have the opportunity, that is, to pass that lump sum on to your heirs?
Very important.
That's it. If you do, then we're looking at other things, right? That's really what happens, is we're taking that lump sum, we're recreating a pension for them, we're talking about different Social Security options, etc., giving them an opportunity to retain that capital. For some folks, it's important. For some folks, guess what? If you don't have heirs, you don't have children, who cares, right?
Or the other nice thing is, because I'm sure there's some people out there that have access to pensions that unfortunately don't have access to a lump sum option, because not every pension plan offers the lump sum. There are alternatives to this, which means that, if you still want the opportunity to pass some assets on to your heirs and you only have the pension option, we can always work the equation from the other direction. If your pension is in excess of what you need on a monthly basis, then we could start saying, let's take the portion that you are not using for monthly income and start investing that after tax to start creating some capital that you'll have the opportunity to pass on.
Or we could purchase a life insurance contract with that excess portion.
There's lots of, absolutely, if you want to create the benefit now,
right,
and have it available basically immediately, then upon your death, then a life insurance option is, and that's a great point, because you could say, let's take the excess of the pension over 12 months. That's the maximum premium we know that we have available to fund, and we can work the numbers backwards from there.
Well, and what we're talking about is growing their capital to what they're able to pass on to their heirs. For someone that was non-insurable, and Rob, that really is a good option, but for someone that may not be insurable. And we do this, and we're having this discussion a lot of times with folks taking required minimum distributions. They're forced to take them, but they don't need the money in many cases.
What a great problem to have.
Right. Is what they're able to do is we're saying, hey, so instead of investing the money in a way that benefits you in the short term, why don't we think about how should we be investing for your younger beneficiaries over the long term? Because we know that investments that are made after tax are subject to the step up at death.
Right.
So investing for the kids, the grandkids, et cetera, in maybe more growth-oriented strategies compared to an income strategy, they're going to be getting those gains income tax-free.
And that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it's fun. So really, again, it's a puzzle. We have all these pieces. It's an algebra problem. We have to define really, what are the variables? What are your variables, and what are you looking at this point? Again, our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you, 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line.
And we have several text questions. Do you want to take our second break of the hour? When we get back, we will answer every single one. So don't touch that dial.
Now, back to Straight Talk on Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are Jeff and Aaron Lapidus.
Welcome back to our closing 13 minutes of hour number 1 of Straight Talk on Retirement. I'm Jeff Lapidus, the retirement coach.
I'm Aaron Lapidus, the retirement coach.
And I'm Robert Markham, your life insurance and fixed annuity sales specialist.
And we are willing, waiting, and wanting to answer your calls at 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the KTRS text line.
And we've got some interesting texts on the line. The first one being, Aaron is an absolute genius.
I swear I didn't write this.
They have said that air conditioning is the biggest breakthrough from a technological standpoint of all time. The Southwest and the Southeast would not have been populated like they were without it, nor would the impacts to manufacturing, etc. She is a financial genius, but technical as well. Thank you, Cousin Murray.
Hey, that's not Mom's cell phone number, and I swear I didn't text that in.
No, we were watching.
I appreciate
we were
it.
watching something about the founding of Singapore, and the founder Lee Wan Q made this point about air conditioning being absolutely paramount to Singapore's growth as a city-state. And
it is just because I am maligned, I am ostracized, I am mocked for my enjoyment of air conditioning, and I just don't understand.
So as soon as we heard that, Aaron's like, see, I told you.
Right. A country's founder agrees. Just saying. It's nice to know, what is that, confirmation bias? You're on the right track.
Yes.
Okay, now back to the important texts.
And next texter writes, what age does government no longer take back Social Security dollars if a retiree wants to continue to work part-time? I know you have said many times, but I did not pay much attention because I never thought I would be interested in returning back to work full-time. You know, I've been saying it. It happens. You get home, and then you're just like, I think I have more tread on the tires. That age would be full retirement age. At your full retirement age, once you get beyond that, there is no longer any take-back. Now, the year you turn your full retirement age, that number is $59,520. So if you earn north of that, they will take back $1 for every $3 that you earn. But after you're through that, there is no further take back.
And for most people approaching Social Security, you're between 66 years old and 5 to 10 months, and
right.
A full 67 is where we're looking at right now for full normal retirement age. So you just want to take a look. There's a great graphic on the Social Security Administration's website that shows you if you were born in X year, what your full retirement age is. Also, if you have a My Social Security account, then you can log in and it'll tell you right there what your normal retirement age is. Rob, will you just tell us the first number, which is as soon as you turn 62, if you'd like to elect your Social Security benefit, you can earn no more than...
If you're an individual filing...
Well, no, this is for individuals all the time,
$25,000 and under, there is no tax. If you're between 25 and 34, you could pay...
Wait, not the taxes. We're talking about when you turn 62, how much can you earn?
$22,320.
Perfect. So $22,320 from 62 until the year before you reach normal retirement age.
Correct.
The year you reach normal retirement age, you get that
$59,520.
And then when you hit normal retirement age, you're free and clear to earn
You
as much as
are
you'd like.
ready to go. You can earn as much as you like with no take back.
Awesome. We've got I think we've got a couple more text questions here.
Let's do it.
Oh, okay. I have an investment question. There's a handful of states where there is no income tax, but is there any state that they also have no tax on dividends you earn? Maybe a trust could be created in that state and then funded with dividend-paying stocks. I love clever listeners.
I love the ones that want to live in Alcatraz.
Oh, come on. First of all, Alcatraz.
Send
you to a nice white-collar prison with Martha Stewart. Unfortunately, there aren't any states that don't have federal tax on, or state tax rather, on dividends and interest. So that was a great idea, though.
Yep. Well, we're already double taxed at this point anyway, so it doesn't make a lot of sense. But
what do you mean double taxed? Oh, because you invested the initial money that's earning you the dividend?
Well, you pay tax. First of all, to get the money, right, you had to pay taxes to get that money.
To earn it, yeah.
And then on the interest, now you're paying it again. And then you have more dividends, you're paying again. So we just keep paying over and over again. And this has nothing to do with income level. Everybody's subject to this. It's just wrong.
Right, everyone's subject to dividends and interest.
Yes.
On their...
the tax code isn't always fair.
Well, like Grandpa said,
but it
fair
is what it
what
is.
You pay to ride the bus.
There you go. Thank you.
Someone had a comment on our last story about Joe and Sally and said Sally should immediately invest all future monies into her 401k Roth if available.
So that's actually a great thought, too, which is if Sally reduced, so when we were talking about Sally no longer having to make contributions to her retirement plan because her husband, Joe, and herself had saved enough to create a comfortable retirement. If she's reducing her contributions to the match only, she could make those contributions to the Roth 401k if she has accessibility there. The match contributions are still going to go to the pre-tax 401k traditional side of your retirement plan, but you could start building some Roth assets there as well, which would be nice. And I know that those are a newer addition for most employer-sponsored plans, so a lot of people haven't had as much time to put large dollar amounts into their Roths.
Yes, and we do see most of the folks that we work with, we don't see them using their Roth accounts for income purposes. They're typically used for large capital purchases. So
because it helps to moderate your tax bracket over time.
So, that was a very good recommendation and certainly one that we would consider. But we haven't given you everything about Joe and Sally, except that we did mention they did have a mortgage.
Right.
So it might be possible that we could reduce their mortgage indebtedness significantly over the next 3 years by just taking that money after tax and applying it to their outstanding mortgage payments and balance.
There are lots of options, but our texter did add a great thought too, especially if
they're a long-time listener,
Right.
They have to.
Right. Smart.
They're getting it.
They are.
And our next texter writes, I'm with you about the AC. After being outside in 98-degree temperatures with high humidity. Best invention.
Team AC every day.
Yeah, no, I mean, anytime you're getting into a hot house,
right? Hot house,
a hot box. You step into your car and it's just a hot box. It's definitely not fun.
No, certainly not.
A wonderful invention, no question about it.
Can't say enough good things about it.
And we've got one more really timely and interesting text. And our texter writes, I've heard a lot of talk about interest rate cuts potentially happening at the end of this year or the beginning of next. Is this the last opportunity to lock in decent interest rates? And would it make sense to try to lock in a higher rate for a longer period than CDs would provide? I'm thinking in particular about a fixed annuity. Thanks.
Yes, maybe.
Also, move swift, because this text is incredibly timely because I've already received several emails from many of the fixed annuity companies that they're dropping rates.
I had
in anticipation.
Right, because
of the Fed dropping rates.
I think that a lot of people don't think about the fact that the Fed is the strongest mover of rates, but rates are still publicly traded, so to speak. So they're going to move on, just like we see interest rate sensitivity happens at different levels. Mortgages tend to be the most sensitive to what the Fed does, going up or down. But they also are impacted by how many people are looking for mortgages, just like so that's a way that interest rates move as well, as supply and demand, so to speak. So there's more than one factor that moves an interest rate, and it also depends on what rate we're looking at. We tend to see like we noticed in our checking and savings accounts, that the banks never moved rates really, even though we saw a 400% change in rates over the last several years. You're not getting more than pennies in those checking accounts, but the money market accounts moved pretty substantially.
Yes, I would certainly say that a part of any income strategy would want to include different maturity dates on fixed income. So maybe what you consider doing is maybe you take 25% of your vault. We'd like to think of your emergency fund, something that you don't see you're going to need in the next 12 months. And maybe you're locking that up for a 6-12-month rate.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you're taking 25% and going into a longer rate, 2, 3, 5-year rate. There's nothing wrong with diversifying. It's sort of like taking profits in, we'll call it stocks or stock mutual funds. If you're going to complain about taking gains, nobody's listening. Right? Taking gains is a good thing to do. So
you're making money and you're complaining?
That's right. Nobody's listening. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. So if it makes you feel more comfortable to do that, that's fine. But
also, you might have a nice opportunity with the bond component of your portfolio, which is also fixed income, to take advantage of when rates start to fall. You'll see some appreciation in your presently held bonds.
Those bonds all become that much more valuable.
Well, and it wouldn't surprise me, and we see this even with our clients when I'm visiting with them on a weekly basis, is that in many cases they're not taking advantage of what I like to call high interest earning money market accounts that could be available through their banks or through other financial institutions. Your bank isn't going to come to you and say, oh, by the way,
we could give you more interest if you wanted.
We'd be very happy to do that for you. It'll cost us money. They don't do that.
Right.
And, we're recommending let's squeeze as much interest as we can out, especially on our safe money that's there to be there for emergencies. It certainly makes sense to do that. So even with interest rate changes, maybe going slightly the other way, maybe.
Right, we haven't seen that.
We haven't even seen our first rate cut yet.
Exactly. It's certainly something to consider. At the same time, we do want you to consider not touching that dial.
That's right.
Because we've got a full hour of Straight Talk on Retirement right after these ongoing messages. And the cool part is we're going to start talking about things that you care about, which is Medicare. So don't touch retirement.
The opinions you hear on KTRS are those of the host, callers, and guests, and are not necessarily those of this station, its management, or owners. If you have comments or suggestions, contact us at ktrs.com. Thanks for listening. Let's talk about smart choices for your money. It's Straight Talk and Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are your retirement coaches, Jeff and Aaron Lapidus.
Welcome back to Straight Talk on Retirement, hour number 2. And for our longtime listeners, we always kick off the second hour of our show with our Medicare segment.
Because you care, we talk Medicare. Just wanted to give a quick update to our texters out there. We haven't forgot about you. We're going to be answering all the texts that are coming in right after our Medicare segment, so just hold tight.
Yes, and keep them coming. And if you have any Medicare questions on deck, send them in, 84126 on the text line, or give us a call, 314-931-5877. We'd love to chat with you on the air. Always happy to take some calls. We want to focus on Medicare for a couple of minutes. We'll get those questions, and then we're going to circle back to everyone that sent in a financial text question.
But for right now, because you care, we talk Medicare.
Let's talk about Marianne.
Let's. And Marianne sent us a nice email and said, hi, Frank. I'm 68 years old, and I'm getting ready to retire. I have been listening to Jeff and Aaron on the radio for years, and you have all provided excellent knowledge for us. So thank you, Marianne. Appreciate that. I wanted to pick your brain and see if you could clarify a few things for me. I am using a plan offered by my employer. However, I was told I will be getting kicked off when I retire this fall. I have only ever had my current plan. I recently have been having discussions with my girlfriends about switching to Medicare, and I am more confused than ever. Now, Marianne, that is very common. We've heard that more times than we can count. Did I mess up by not taking Medicare at 65, and will I have a penalty? My friends tell me that Medicare is the same for everyone, and I should just get on the exact same plan as them. Is this accurate? How much does Medicare cost? Because I don't pay for my current health insurance, so am I able to get Medicare for free? When do I need to get started with Medicare to ensure I can start my plan in September? Is open enrollment season over, or would I have to wait until October to start Medicare, which can potentially leave me with no health coverage for a month? Thank you for your time. I appreciate the clarifications you can provide. A lot of questions from Marianne there.
Yes, there were quite a few questions, but I think all of her questions are center around 5 myths that no matter how often we talk about it on the radio, they tend to perpetuate.
I wonder why that is.
Because I think it's possible that we have a lot of individuals turning 65. They don't have a lot of fun things to talk about, so they're talking about health insurance. So people are taking advice, like Marianne's taking advice from her girlfriends. They're on Medicare, so they might know a little bit more than us about the actual use, since unfortunately I don't get to actually use Medicare. That's one of the drawbacks.
Of all the things that I wish we could participate in, I never thought I would be at a point where I thought, I wish I could get on a Medicare plan.
See what it's like.
Right. Just to be able to give some of that firsthand knowledge, that would be great. But let's tackle myth number 1. I must take Medicare when I turn 65. Otherwise, I will have a lifetime penalty.
So, no. If you are turning 65 and you're like Marianne, you're currently working, so you have employer-based coverage, you don't have to take Medicare until you decide to leave your policy. So that would be what's called a qualifying event. You're going to lose coverage, and you're going to use Medicare to pick up your coverage thereafter. The only reason that you would receive a penalty from Medicare is if you were turning 65 and you did not have other what's called qualified coverage. So if you're using individual health insurance, if you have no Medicare, if you have no health insurance, those would be 2 examples. If you're using COBRA, those would be examples of when you would see a penalty assessed against you for not having elected Medicare. However, if you're utilizing government coverage like TRICARE for Life, if you're utilizing an employer-based policy like Marianne, if you're utilizing your spouse's policy, so you have coverage through your spouse that's still working after 65, you would not be an individual that would be subject to a penalty.
And I just wanted to highlight what is not credible coverage. As Aaron said, COBRA is not. And it's kind of deceiving because when you're separated from your employer, you get that COBRA notice to continue on with your current health care. So it would almost lure you into a false sense of, but I have coverage. Not credible coverage. Just wanted to put that out there. The ACA, if you're shopping
so any individual health insurance, ACA, if you went directly to a insurer and, Blue Cross Blue Shield, United Healthcare, you have individual or family benefits when you turn 65, that is not credible coverage.
Or group insurance with less than 20 employees. All those examples do not count
as credible coverage. Exactly.
Okay, myth number 2. Medicare is a one-size-fits-all.
So Medicare Part A and B come directly from the government. They are identical for everyone because it's a government program. However, how you choose to supplement your Medicare benefits is not a one-size-fits-all, right?
Absolutely. I mean, if you are on a traditional Medicare plan, we're having to piece together your Part D. There are no extra benefits, so there's no networks, so that's one cul-de-sac you could be into. Or you could have a Medicare Advantage plan with a max out-of-pocket with extra benefit. It just kind of depends on what your situation is. That's why we like to get you into the office, know what you're taking, who you're seeing, and work the equation backwards from that. How do you interface with your healthcare providers? And once we have those answers, we can go about getting you to the right plan that's going to work for you.
That's really one of the benefits of Medicare. Not only do you get to choose a plan that fits you, you don't have to choose the same plan as your spouse. Certainly don't have to choose the same plan as your friends, but you're able to customize your coverage to meet your healthcare needs and how you like to consume care or how you like to spend money. So you have a lot of options on Medicare. There's not a one-size-fits-all option, which is really, I think, a benefit. Myth number 3.
Medicare is free because Joe Namath told me so. Well, if Joe told you, who am I to argue? Kidding.
Joe's making a lot of money on those commercials, I bet.
It's too much. He probably made more in those commercials than he did throwing the ball.
Everyone, the base Medicare Part B premium is $174.70 a month.
And everybody pays their Part B premiums. Let me say that again. So everybody pays their Part B premiums.
Unless you're low income, then maybe the government pays it for you. But you need to be, you have to be Medicaid eligible.
Unless there are a special circumstance, as Aaron said, like Medicaid, where they're coming into everybody pays Part B premiums. Not getting around that.
And then there are additional costs, meaning co-pays for coverage if you're using a Medicare Advantage plan and you have a maximum out of pocket that creates protection for you, or you have premiums to pay to cover your supplemental plans that couple with your Medicare coverage. So there are costs to Medicare regardless of what type of policy you choose.
Even if you are on a Medicare Advantage plan with no premium, again, everybody pays their Part B premiums.
And the $174.70 is the base premium. For many people, you know that you might be paying a little bit more than that or a lot more than that because Medicare Part B is income adjusted. So you'll want to make sure that you're taking a look at your income in retirement to determine what your true Medicare Part B premium will be. However, a good base number is that $174.70.
And myth number 4, I must enroll 3 to 4 months early or my Medicare will be delayed.
It's advisable that you get started on enrolling in Medicare about 3 months in advance. And the reason for that is it's going to give you time and opportunity not only to review your options, but think about your options. Medicare, however, is very generous to its enrollees, which means if you need, let's say you needed September 1st coverage, like I believe Marianne mentioned, you could apply August 31st and still get July 1st cover and still get September 1st coverage. So you can apply the day before your election.
Such that we'll be right back with the next hour of State Talk.
Effective date and still receive your benefits. However, you're going to be waiting for your cards. Unfortunately, you might have to make a split decision that you're not necessarily confident in. So our recommendation is if you're planning to retire, you're reaching 65 and you do not have qualified coverage, so you have one of those types of coverage that did not count as credible, COBRA, Affordable Care Act coverage, or a group insurance that has less than 20 employees, you're going to want to take a look. Why not get started about 60 to 90 days in advance with the process to get enrolled?
Absolutely. Myth number 5, I missed open enrollment period from October through December, so I must wait until open enrollment begins to enroll in Medicare.
Open enrollment, they call it open enrollment. However, this is really your annual election period, October 15th through December 7th. That is for individuals already on Medicare. It's their opportunity to make a change. There are many different election periods in Medicare. The first being your initial election period. That's the 7 months that surrounds the month you turn 65. They call that your initial election because that's the first time you're eligible to elect Medicare. Then they have a special election period available for you, which would be if you're someone like Marianne, you've worked past 65, and you're going to elect Medicare outside of that 7-month window, you'll be able to elect it at any point based on when you're losing coverage. The only time you're going to take advantage of the annual enrollment period is when you're already on Medicare to make alterations to the plan that you selected for the previous year.
Absolutely. And even if Marianne was on this plan and say she moved out of the service area, she's here in Missouri, but her life has now brought her closer to her children in, say, Florida, she would be given another special election period once she completed that move to pick a plan in her new service area. So
that's right. There are other triggers that are going to create a special election, and you named the most common, which is you're moving out of the service area. So you're moving out of your, if you elected Medicare originally in Missouri, you're moving to another state. Sometimes you're moving to another county, but you're going to get notified of that if you stay in the state but move to another county. You might find that your plan is not available in that county. You're going to be notified by the insurance company that you need to make a change.
And those are our 5 myths regarding Medicare.
So quickly, I must take Medicare when I'm 65. Not necessarily. Medicare is one size fits all. Certainly not, and that's what makes it great. Myth number 3, Medicare is free. Unfortunately,
everybody pays their Part B premiums.
And not only that, everybody's paid their entire working life, essentially, because we have the Medicare tax. Myth number 4, I must enroll 3 to 4 months early or my Medicare can be delayed. We like to get the process started 3 months in advance, but you don't have to complete your enrollment 3 months in advance in order to receive benefits when you'd like.
And myth number 5, I missed open enrollment period, so I got to wait all the way till next year. Not true. You will be given a special enrollment period to make your selection.
Right, or your initial election period. There are a lot of other options under Medicare that are going to give you the opportunity to enroll when you want to. I thought that was, Marianne had so many questions. They all fall in the purview of many of those myths, so I thought it was a good time to review some of the things that we hear on a regular basis about Medicare. And if you have any questions about Medicare like Marianne did, just send Frank, our Medicare coach, an email, franklin@jblfinancial.com, or give our office a call, 314-863-0008. And Frank is always happy to answer your Medicare questions.
And just as an aside to that, we're quickly approaching open enrollment. I mean, we're a month from September, so now is a good time as any to get on that schedule, to meet with Frank and put eyes on the new plans as we get them, so that you can have a full understanding of the choices in front of you for the open enrollment period that's coming up very, very quickly.
And I'd like to very proudly add that we're good at this. And there's nobody in the state that's better than us, or actually helps more people than we do. We're helping over 300 people a year and this is all year round,
yes,
to enroll. And that's really important. And obviously I just went through, we have a small company. United Healthcare kicked me off and my wife, and we had to find coverage. And fortunately, I had very expert advice to assist me to do that. And I do want to provide a reimbursement update.
Well, we provided a brief reimbursement update last week that you were in the throes of a customer service battle.
The throes
of a battle.
Is that what you call it when I'm yelling?
I was actually sad because some of my funniest memories are of you getting, what the problem is? You sit on hold, and I think a lot of listeners could probably commiserate here. You're sitting on hold, or you've been transferred around to a bunch of people, and then finally when you speak to someone, you're hyped up and they're not so hyped up. They get they kind of get sideswiped because you're aggravated by the time you finally get to talk to a human.
Honey, with all due respect, I want to talk about golfer news, okay?
Oh, I'm
golfer
news.
So I did go to one of the local golf retailers, and there's only a couple. And I purchased a new golf club.
Brand
spanking new. And of course, I was smart enough this time to trade in a club also, because why add another one to the, to the dungeon, which I call my golf club Hall of Fame.
I had no idea you could trade these things in like used cars.
Golf club graveyard.
Well, guess what? You don't really get any money for it, but it's better. I decided it's better than nothing, because I was never going to use the club again.
So does that mean someone's going to be running around with your hand-me-downs?
There certainly is a possibility, and if they're lucky, none of the mojo got into that club. But in either case, what happened was that I purchased the club, I made a trade-in, got the receipt, submitted the claim, and they paid for it.
They paid for the golf club, but we know that you're still hotly contesting your greens fees.
Right, and so the tip that I did receive is that if you do want to get reimbursed for greens fees, you must have a receipt specifically for that fee.
Yeah.
In my case, what I did was, when I was in California, the place that I was living did have they call it a country club, but it really wasn't. But what happened was they would bill me.
Yeah.
And, 18, but et cetera. I never signed anything, and they would just bill me each time that I showed up, et cetera. And so I had an itemized monthly statement, which I sent in, and Aetna wasn't loving that. But I know that they're going to change their mind. I have a good feeling that, we say cooler heads will prevail, and they will. But if not, guess what? I'm getting more golf clubs. And I've got a $1,200 annual benefit.
That's right.
And I know that they're doing this. I'm going to take advantage of it. My friends are incredibly jealous,
but they're not old enough for Medicare yet.
Well, some of them have traditional Medicare supplements, so they don't have the fitness benefits. Some of them actually have fitness benefit, or they have supplements with other companies.
Don't have a fitness benefit.
That do not have a fitness benefit, and we don't know what next year's fitness benefit is going to be. So, it is what it is, and that's just some good news. So.
That was a great update. We didn't get the GoPro going to watch you submit the reimbursement, but I wish we had had the audio of your aggravated phone call.
But I don't think that would be compliance friendly to play that.
Appropriate.
No, I kept most of my 4-letter words while I was on hold, but what gets me?
What bothered you?
What bothered me is that I'm getting a person on customer service, and they say, I want to put you on hold, and they're going to go talk to somebody, right? And they come back 3 minutes later, and they're not making a decision.
Right.
So it took 3 times for them to do this, and I'm just like, I want to talk to someone that can make a decision, that will look at this thing, not you, and make a decision.
Not you.
Want to talk to the trigger pullers, not the paper pushers.
Yeah, I mean, and that's not unusual, and frankly, it didn't work out, but
yet.
Well,
there's I'm sure you can find something to spend money on, golf related.
Well, right,
right,
and I know what they're reimbursing, so new clubs. That's what it's going to be, new clubs.
What a wonderful world we live in. Medicare beneficiaries,
life,
clubs,
new golf clubs.
Life is good, and if obviously, I'm going to need to find out. I'm going to be very interested in seeing if this benefit has changed significantly in the next year.
Well, we got to wait about 2 months to find out that information. October 1st.
Sounds good. Again, our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you. 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line.
And speaking of our phone calls, we have Trish on the line. She's been waiting patiently. She has a CD versus Roth question. Trish, thank you for holding.
Thank you. Yeah, my question is, I'm 75, still work full time, and would it be more beneficial for me to invest some funds in a CD right now or a Roth IRA?
Well, Trish, I was going to say, I'm assuming that your income is under the limit so that you are eligible to make a Roth contribution.
What are the limits?
I believe it's around
$91,000 for an individual.
Right, $91,000 for an individual.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's cool. And so I was going to ask, do you currently have a Roth in place?
I do not.
Okay, so if you do make a Roth contribution, this is your first-year contribution. That means that for you to be able to withdraw any interest from that account and for it to be income tax-free, you'll have to hold that account for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Which may or may not be in your plans. I would suggest that if you're thinking about a CD, is it because you want to make sure that you have some liquidity there, earning a decent rate of interest, but also have, again, not just liquid, but also have the access to that money if you need it in the future for whatever purpose might be?
Primarily interest right now, but also liquidity, of course.
Okay, so I would say since you know that the interest is going to be taxed if you were to withdraw any of that over the first 5 years, I would recommend that you consider looking at a CD or possibly, if you're not already involved, maybe a high-interest money market so you have the best of both worlds. You're earning a high current rate of interest, but the money is still available to you. So not a bad deal. But thank you so much for your call.
Hi, thank you. And I have one last little question.
Sure.
Is there any book that you recommend just for basic knowledge of investing?
No.
No. No, come see you, right?
Well, you can visit with us if you have a financial advisor. You visit them. I guess really what I'm wondering is, when we talk about investing, are you interested in understanding how the financial system works in terms of money capital markets? Are you more interested in investing philosophies? That's really a sort of a different situation there. So there are a lot of people that have how-to books. What I would suggest is visiting with a financial advisor and really having someone that can help you align your goals with your investing. And at that time, what will happen is, and we think is, you should be receiving enough information to help you become experienced and knowledgeable. Your advisor should tell you, this is why we're doing this, and here are the options that are available to you. I mean, that's just a normal thing that would naturally occur versus walking into the bank and saying, I want to buy a 3-month CD. I mean,
right.
So I would suggest if you have a financial advisor, if you're currently at work, and you are in a retirement plan, maybe your company has a financial advisor associated with that plan, and say, go talk to them. It doesn't. No, it won't cost you anything.
Nothing with where I'm working now. Nothing. Okay. So, what are your hours for appointments?
Well, what happens is we see folks generally from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., which is really when the market runs during the day. And you can always give us a call at 314-863-0008. Would love to visit with you and talk about your situation. And thank you so much for the call.
Excellent. And we have just a ton of text questions to get through now.
Let's rock. Let's rock on a few, and then we'll take a break.
And our next texter writes, hello, I'm listening to your show for the first time, and I'm turning 65 in December. I'm confused as to the fact that I was told I have to register for Medicare before the end of the year, even though I don't plan on using it. I'm going to stay on my husband's plan, who is younger than me. What am I supposed to do here? Thank you.
The great news is Medicare knows how old you are. Do not worry. It's a government program. They've got your age. You don't have to register for Medicare until you're actually ready to use it. It's an elective benefit. Now, it's an effective date and still receive your benefits. However, you're going to be waiting for your cards. Unfortunately, you might have to make a split decision that you're not necessarily confident in. So our recommendation is if you're planning to retire, you're reaching 65 and you do not have qualified coverage, so you have one of those types of coverage that did not count as credible, COBRA, Affordable Care Act coverage, or a group insurance that has less than 20 employees, you're going to want to take a look. Why not get started about 60 to 90 days in advance with the process to get enrolled?
Absolutely. Myth number 5, I missed open enrollment period from October through December, so I must wait until open enrollment begins to enroll in Medicare.
Open enrollment, they call it open enrollment, however, this is really your annual election period, October 15th through December 7th. That is for individuals already on Medicare. It's their opportunity to make a change. There are many different election periods in Medicare. The first being your initial election period. That's the 7 months that surrounds the month you turn 65. They call that your initial election because that's the first time you're eligible to elect Medicare. Then they have a special election period available for you, which would be if you're someone like Marianne, you've worked past 65, and you're going to elect Medicare outside of that 7-month window. You'll be able to elect it at any point based on when you're losing coverage. The only time you're going to take advantage of the annual enrollment period is when you're already on Medicare to make alterations to the plan that you selected for the previous year.
Absolutely. And even if Marianne was on this plan and say she moved out of the service area, she's here in Missouri, but her life has now brought her closer to her children in, say, Florida, she would be given another special election period once she completed that move to pick a plan in her new service area. So
that's right. There are other triggers that are going to create a special election, and you named the most common, which is you're moving out of the service area. So you're moving out of your if you elected Medicare originally in Missouri, you're moving to another state. Sometimes you're moving to another county, but you're going to get notified of that if you stay in the state but move to another county. You might find that your plan is not available in that county. You're going to be notified by the insurance company that you need to make a change.
And those are our 5 myths regarding Medicare. So
quickly, I must take Medicare when I'm 65. Not necessarily. Medicare is one size fits all. Certainly not, and that's what makes it great. Myth number 3, Medicare is free. Unfortunately,
everybody pays their Part B premiums.
And not only that, everybody's paid their entire working life, essentially, because we have the Medicare tax. Myth number 4, I must enroll 3 to 4 months early or my Medicare can be delayed. We like to get the process started 3 months in advance, but you don't have to complete your enrollment 3 months in advance in order to receive benefits when you'd like.
And myth number 5, I missed open enrollment period, so I got to wait all the way till next year. Not true. You will be given a special enrollment period to make your selection.
Right, or your initial election period. There are a lot of other options under Medicare that are going to give you the opportunity to enroll when you want to. I thought that was... Marianne had so many questions. They all fall in the purview of many of those myths, so I thought it was a good time to review some of the things that we hear on a regular basis about Medicare. And if you have any questions about Medicare like Marianne did, just send Frank, our Medicare coach, an email, franklin@jblfinancial.com, or give our office a call, 314-863-0008. And Frank is always happy to answer your Medicare questions.
And just as an aside to that, we're quickly approaching open enrollment. I mean, we're a month from September, so now is a good time as any to get on that schedule, to meet with Frank and put eyes on the new plans as we get them, so that you can have a full understanding of the choices in front of you for the open enrollment period that's coming up very, very quickly.
And I'd like to proudly, and very proudly, add that we're good at this. And there's nobody in the state that's better than us or actually helps more people than we do. We're helping over 300 people a year and this is all year round, to enroll. And that's really important. And obviously I just went through, we have a small company. United Healthcare kicked me off and my wife, and we had to find coverage. And fortunately, I had very expert advice to assist me to do that. And I do want to provide a reimbursement update.
Well, we provided a brief reimbursement update last week that you were in the throes of a customer service battle.
The throes
of a battle.
Is that what you call it when I'm yelling?
I was actually sad because some of my funniest memories are of you getting... You know what the problem is? You sit on hold, and I think a lot of listeners could probably commiserate here. You're sitting on hold, or you've been transferred around to a bunch of people, and then finally when you speak to someone, you're hyped up, and they're not so hyped up. They get they kind of get sideswiped because you're aggravated by the time you finally get to talk to a human.
Honey, with all due respect, I want to talk about golfer news, okay?
Oh,
Golfer
news.
So I did go to one of the local golf retailers, and there's only a couple. And I purchased a new golf club.
Brand new.
Brand spanking new. And, of course, I was smart enough this time to trade in a club also because, why add another one to the, to the dungeon, which I call my golf club Hall of Fame.
I had no idea you could trade these things in like used cars.
Golf club graveyard.
Well, guess what? You don't really get any money for it, but it's better. I decided it's better than nothing because I was never going to use the club again.
So does that mean someone's going to be running around with your hand-me-downs?
There certainly is a possibility, and if they're lucky, none of the mojo got into that club. But in either case, what happened was that I purchased the club, I made a trade-in, got the receipt, submitted the claim, and they paid for it.
They paid for the golf club, but we know that you're still hotly contesting your greens fees.
Right, and so the tip that I did receive is that if you do want to get reimbursed for greens fees, you must have a receipt specifically for that fee.
Yeah.
In my case, what I did was when I was in California, the the place that I was living did have, they call it a country club, but it really wasn't. But what happened was they would bill me.
Yeah.
And, 18, but et cetera. I never signed anything, and they would just bill me each time that I showed up, et cetera. And so I had an itemized monthly statement, which I sent in, and Aetna wasn't loving that. But I know that they're going to change their mind. I have a good feeling that, well, we say cooler heads will prevail, and they will. But if not, guess what? I'm getting more golf clubs. And I've got a $1,200 annual benefit.
That's right.
And I know that they're doing this. I'm going to take advantage of it. My friends are incredibly jealous,
but they're not old enough for Medicare yet.
Well, some of them have traditional Medicare supplements, so they don't have the fitness benefits. Some of them actually have fitness benefit, or they have supplements with other companies.
Don't have a fitness benefit.
That do not have a fitness benefit, and we don't know what next year's fitness benefit is going to be. So, it is what it is, and that's just some good news. So.
That was a great update. We didn't get the GoPro going to watch you submit the reimbursement, but I wish we had had the audio of your aggravated phone call.
But I don't think that would be compliance friendly to play that.
Appropriate.
No, I kept most of my 4-letter words while I was on hold, but what gets me?
What bothered you?
What bothered me is that I'm getting a person on customer service, and they say, I want to put you on hold, and they're going to go talk to somebody, right? And they come back 3 minutes later, and they're not making a decision.
Right.
So it took 3 times for them to do this, and I'm just like, I want to talk to someone that can make a decision, that will look at this thing, not you, and make a decision.
Not you.
Want to talk to the trigger pullers, not the paper pushers.
Yeah, I mean, and that's not unusual, and frankly, it didn't work out, but
yet.
Well,
there's always. I'm sure you can find something to spend money on, golf related.
Well, right,
right,
and I know what they're reimbursing, so new clubs. That's what it's going to be, new clubs.
What a wonderful world we live in. Medicare beneficiaries,
life,
clubs,
new golf clubs.
Life is good, and if obviously, I'm going to need to find out. I'm going to be very interested in seeing if this benefit has changed significantly in the next year.
Well, we got to wait about 2 months to find out that information. October 1st.
Sounds good. Again, our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you. 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line.
And speaking of our phone calls, we have Trish on the line. She's been waiting patiently. She has a CD versus Roth question. Trish, thank you for holding.
Thank you. Yeah, my question is, I'm 75, still work full time, and would it be more beneficial for me to invest some funds in a CD right now or a Roth IRA?
Well, Trish, I was going to say, I'm assuming that your income is under the limit so that you are eligible to make a Roth contribution.
What are the limits?
I believe it's around
$91,000 for an individual.
Right, $91,000 for an individual.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's cool. And so I was going to ask, do you currently have a Roth in place?
I do not.
Okay, so if you do make a Roth contribution, this is your first-year contribution. That means that for you to be able to withdraw any interest from that account and for it to be income tax-free, you'll have to hold that account for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Which may or may not be in your plans. I would suggest that if you're thinking about a CD, is it because you want to make sure that you have some liquidity there, earning a decent rate of interest, but also have, again, not just liquid, but also have the access to that money if you need it in the future for whatever purpose might be?
Primarily interest right now, but also liquidity, of course.
Okay, so I would say since you know that the interest is going to be taxed if you were to withdraw any of that over the first 5 years, I would recommend that you consider looking at a CD or possibly, if you're not already involved, maybe a high-interest money market so you have the best of both worlds. You're earning a high current rate of interest, but the money is still available to you. So not a bad deal. But thank you so much for your call.
All right, thank you. And I have one last little question.
Sure.
Is there any book that you recommend just for basic knowledge of investing?
No.
No, come to you, right?
Well, you can visit with us if you have a financial advisor. You visit them. I guess really what I'm wondering is, when we talk about investing, are you interested in understanding how the financial system works in terms of money capital markets? Are you more interested in investing philosophies? That's really a sort of a different situation there. So there are a lot of people that have how-to books. What I would suggest is visiting with a financial advisor and really having someone that can help you align your goals with your investing. And at that time, what will happen is, and we think is, you should be receiving enough information to help you become experienced and knowledgeable. Your advisor should tell you, this is why we're doing this, and here are the options that are available to you. I mean, that's just a normal thing that would naturally occur versus walking into the bank and saying, I want to buy a 3-month CD. I mean,
right.
So I would suggest if you have a financial advisor, if you're currently at work and you are in a retirement plan, maybe your company has a financial advisor associated with that plan, and say, go talk to them. It doesn't. No, it won't cost you anything.
Nothing with where I'm working now. Nothing. Okay. So, what are your hours for appointments?
Well, what happens is we see folks generally from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., which is really when the market runs during the day. And you can always give us a call at 314-863-0008. Would love to visit with you and talk about your situation. And thank you so much for the call.
Excellent. And we have just a ton of text questions to get through now.
Let's rock. Let's rock on a few, and then we'll take a break.
And our next texter writes, hello, I'm listening to your show for the first time, and I'm turning 65 in December. I'm confused as to the fact that I was told I have to register for Medicare before the end of the year, even though I don't plan on using it. I'm going to stay on my husband's plan, who is younger than me. What am I supposed to do here? Thank you.
The great news is Medicare knows how old you are. Do not worry. It's a government program. They've got your age. You don't have to register for Medicare until you're actually ready to use it. It's an elective benefit. Now, it's an entitlement. Everyone's entitled to it once they reach a certain age, being 65. But you have to proactively elect it. You don't have to let Medicare know that you've turned 65. They know. When your husband retires and you're going to lose coverage through him, I'm assuming that he works for an employer that has more than 20 employees. That's the one caveat here. You'll both elect Medicare at the same time, essentially. It might be slightly different depending upon when your husband decides to retire. If he's retiring at 65, he may have a slightly easier election process in that he'll just go online to socialsecurity.gov and apply for Medicare. For yourself, since you're using your husband's plan, you'll go online and apply for Medicare Part A, but you'll also have a piece of paper that your husband has his HR department fill out. It's called the Request for Employer Information, and it's going to say, I was on my husband's coverage from the day I turned 65 until the day he retired and we lost coverage. The employer's going to sign off on that and say, yes, I saw her on our health care bills, or our health insurance bills, rather, and you'll submit that to Medicare. That's going to give you the special election that you'll have available to you when you leave your husband's plan and you join Medicare. So you don't have to register in advance. In fact, I would recommend that you don't, just because I don't know what other benefits you have available to you through your husband's employer. You might be losing out on those benefits if you elect Medicare, because once you've elected Medicare, it will eliminate some private benefit options available to you. So no worries.
Yeah, and I was just going to add, the beauty here is that you have a special election that's covered by your company's or your husband's company's health plan. As long as you enroll within 30 days of your loss of coverage, you enroll without any pre-existing conditions. And the nice part will be just continuous coverage. And then, as Aaron was mentioning, when he retires and you decide to get off the plan at the same time, or if, for whatever reason, if there's a huge premium increase and you're working with somebody like Frank, as an example, and we come to the conclusion that, hey, maybe it makes sense for me to go on to Medicare separately, you have a special election. So no loss, no gain. All good.
Absolutely. Let's take one last Medicare question, and then we'll take our break, and we'll come back to all of our text questions.
Very good.
Next texter writes, right now I am using a United Healthcare as a supplement, but I keep dropping into the donut hole on prescriptions. Is there a better program out there? Well, the best thing I can say about the donut hole is that this is the last year you're going to have to deal with it, because next year the donut hole is going away, and it's going to go to a max out-of-pocket construct, with the max out-of-pocket being $2,000.
On the prescriptions.
Correct.
Honey, I guess the only other thing I guess you would think of is whether the drugs that this person is taking is somehow handled a little differently on a formulary basis. The copays are different. Maybe some's at a different copay level. I don't know.
Could be, but with the truth about the donut hole is that you have no protection in the donut hole, regardless of what policy that you elect, because it's a government created reduction in benefits from the Bush administration. Prior to that, there was no prescription coverage. So this was added to Medicare in the early 2000s to help enrollees pay for prescription drugs. However, they built in this gap in coverage, and because it's built into Medicare itself, all of the insurance companies have this same gap. Some plans will cover it slightly better than others. You might reach the donut hole slightly later on other plans, like you said, Dad, based on formulary, based on tiers. However, at this point in the year, there isn't much that we can do in terms of altering your benefits. However, like Rob said, the great news is as we get to 2025, no one is going to have to worry about the donut hole any longer, because the maximum that you can spend on the prescription side of your coverage is going to be $2,000. So that's going to be very helpful. You still are going to want to consult your formulary, though, to ensure that the plan you have matches with the prescriptions you're taking, because if they're not on the formulary, then they won't be part of that $2,000 maximum out of pocket. You'll be spending money outside of the plan, almost like going out of network on a policy that doesn't have out-of-network benefits. So you definitely do not want to do that. So it's still important to review your coverage, even though we know there's going to be a nice cap on those prescription drug expenses in the upcoming year. But with that, let's take our first break of this hour.
Don't touch that dial. We'll be back with more Straight Talk on retirement after these messages.
Let's talk about smart choices for your money. It's Straight Talk on Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are your retirement coaches, Jeff and Aaron Lapidus.
Well, welcome back to our last 30 minutes here of Straight Talk on Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. We're here to answer your phone calls as well as your text at 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the Hot and Heavy KTRS text line.
Let's take it all the way back to our interest rate conversation.
As promised, we are going to get to all the text messages, and thank you for being patient, and thank you for sending them in. And our next texter writes, in regards to a potential rate cut with the Fed in September, isn't it true that the Fed is always looking a minimum of 6 to 8 months into the future? That being said, when they lower rates in an accelerated fashion, does that say that they potentially see problems on the horizon? What's your opinion? Well, they haven't even gotten to the first rate cut yet. So
right.
Before we start saying that, if they were to start cutting by 50 basis points or 75 basis points in an accelerated fashion, as the texter suggests, then perhaps maybe that could portend some storm clouds on the horizon. But my point would be, when haven't there been events or storm clouds on the horizon, or a government shutdown, or an election, or a recession? I mean, how many, for those guys that are on the wrong side of 65, how many of those events have you lived through in your life? So, I mean, these events are always there. They're always going to be with us. And, it's just a price of doing business, as I like to say.
The Fed is always late. That's one thing that they're always looking. They're always
I'm just going to take
late.
the cynical side of things. I mean, first, Powell got hammered. He was late in cutting, in raising rates. We're behind the curve. And then yesterday, all the news was he's late again because, now we're seeing a slight weakening in the job market potentially. And then I would just take it back to our 8 great investing quotes, which is, don't try to buy at the bottom and sell at the top. It can't be done except by liars.
Right.
I think that the Fed really has a limited number of tools in order to help manipulate what it thinks the economy is going to do. The cynical side of me says I don't see the Feds looking 6 to 8 months out, because it seems to me that they have become very reactionary and also very subject to political pressure, which I don't know. I don't know if that was always the case in the past, but it seems as though they're a little bit more bending to political will than to a strict interpretation of monetary policy.
And before we got into the raising rates as quickly as we did, Powell and Yellen didn't even want to admit that the inflation was happening. I'm old enough to remember when it was all transitory. Right. It was just passing through on a train. It would be out of here very quickly.
Right.
And that didn't happen. So I would take prognostications from the Fed with a grain of salt. I mean, if they had a crystal ball,
we'd all be in a different place.
And exactly.
Yeah, the only thing that I would add is there's 2 sides to this coin. There's monetary policy and there's also fiscal policy. Monetary policy, again, is what the Fed does. Fiscal policy is what the government does. Unfortunately, over the last 3+ years, the Fed's been carrying all the water.
Right.
And I think this election is certainly one that's going to bring to head what the American people think about this. I mean, are we willing to live with the inflation that we have? Are we willing to be, the government's continuing to spend out of its mind? You have to, and that is going to affect the markets. And so it is, again, you really have to consider and think about that. It isn't one; it's a 2-sided coin. And so at this point, the Fed is late and they're on their own. So I wouldn't. I mean, truly, they've been on their own for almost 3 years, and so I wouldn't be too concerned about it, because, as Rob was saying, things cycle, and we've really had about 12 months of fabulous growth, which has been great. It was all AI. It was all basically AI powered. At this moment, we took a little bit of a breather, and it's cool, but the good times will be back. They always are.
Sure.
We like to think that they will be.
Absolutely. And our next sector writes, my wife and I would like to advance a portion of our living trust, less than $36,000, to one of our children for home repairs. Can that be done as a tax-free gift, subsequently deducted from their share of the trust upon our death? Interesting.
That is a great question. And yes, absolutely. You can gift, it's up to $18,000 per human being. So you and your wife can gift $18,000 times 2 to one of your children. You would have to add it. It's called an amendment to the trust, or you have to modify the trust to say that you're reducing that child's portion by $36,000. So it's called an amendment, correct?
Yes, exactly. Good thinking.
So so it's going to be a 2-step process. You can gift the money. As long as you keep it under that gift tax limit, you don't have to file any additional tax return paperwork, nor do your children that are receiving the funds. So no paperwork, but you will want to go back to the attorney to add that amendment if that's an important piece to you, to have that $36,000 reduced from their portion.
Or
you have to
take care of the other kids at the same time. And then you don't have to mess with your lawyer, which is going to cost you more than why not?
Something has to be done.
Maybe.
To make up the difference. Yes.
Maybe.
And our next texter writes, is laddering CDs a good option with extra cash? It could be. If we're talking about vault money and you can live with some of the liquidity restrictions that come with owning CDs, and you're comfortable with the time horizon in which you'd be locking up that money, it certainly could be an alternative. Another one could be a high-yielding money market account. There are some options out there for you.
Rob, I thought that was a good analysis, and all I would add to that is don't use a brokerage firm. Why pay fees? Use bank.
Right, go to the bank. If you're going to buy CDs,
right, why pay an advisory
bank.
fee? Don't pay an advisory fee
Right, because it's just going to reduce your interest.
That's something that we don't do.
Absolutely.
Do you want to take our next, because they keep coming in, should we take our next break of the hour? Or?
Yeah, let's take our last break of the hour, and we'll keep answering these text messages.
So keep them coming in. Don't touch that dial. We'll be back with more Straight Talk on Retirement after these messages.
Let's talk about smart choices for your money. It's Straight Talk on Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are your retirement coaches, Jeff and Aaron Lapidus.
Well, 10:46, and we're on our last segment of the show. Before we go on to our next text, I do want to go back and revisit this last text. And this is one of these discussions I'm having with clients all the time. And this comes down to we have to treat our children equally. That's nice. That's fine. But the truth is, kids aren't equal. I look at my children, they're pretty, they're smart. They chose different marriage paths. They chose different career paths, etc. So what happens is they're not equal. Does one maybe need a little bit more help? Are you in a situation where maybe, who knows, grandchildren, you have special needs, whatever?
One child is older, they've suffered longer.
You mean they've had the joy of their parents longer, or what are you referring to, honey?
I didn't put any qualifier on that.
Oh,
I just said
thank you. I appreciate that.
Been on this earth longer.
All-encompass suffering.
Exactly.
Glad your husband drove you today suffering. I could appreciate that. But no, I think it's important here. So just to consider,
they've been alive longer, so they're part of they're a larger fish in that annuity pool, so to speak.
All I'm thinking is that this texter may end up going to the lower lots of times. Right? Because this is equal, true. This is equal. I mean, is it really equal? Does it have to be equal?
Well, I think you've
or
said...
change a beneficiary designation percentage. That's even easier. It doesn't cost you anything.
You said a few times that I've been in meetings with you before, and all jokes aside, it should be fair. It doesn't, and fair doesn't always mean equal. And you get to make those decisions because it's your money until you give it to someone else.
Yes.
And so I think that kind of goes back to your point. Fair being, if one child needs more help in certain ways or certain times than another, it's not unfair to help them, and it doesn't decrease the fairness across the board. It's you're helping each child in the way that they need assistance.
Well, let me be a little more cynical, if I may.
Please.
Which is, I like to think that my children are going to hate me when I leave them. For two reasons. No, none. One, hopefully because I left them, they'll hate me. But the other reason is going to be because of the decisions that I made in terms of how I'm passing on property, etc. That being the case, they're going to hate me anyways. I might as well do what I think is right. So, therefore...
You won't be here to see it.
If you have that's correct. We don't know that. So if you're stuck in the world of equal,
it could cost you extra
fun.
Money.
Well, have fun.
Sure.
But otherwise, it's okay not to be. This is probably one of the most important and personal family decisions you're going to make. And it doesn't matter what your friends do. It doesn't matter what your parents did. It doesn't matter how your brother or sister want to handle things. Do it your own way. That's what's most important.
That is what's most important.
And we've got Judy on the line. Judy, good morning.
Good morning, Rob. How are you?
I could complain, but nobody'd listen.
I know. I feel that way, too. Hey, I heard Aaron the other day on your Facebook page, and I thought she did a wonderful job.
Oh, my gosh. Thank you, Judy. Thank you.
Thanks,
You're
Judy.
welcome. So you're welcome, Jeff. You trained her well. So when you were talking about how much money you need, at the end you said you multiply it by 25. Is that 25 years?
So thank you. I was critiquing myself, Judy, and that was the one thing I didn't get a chance to because the segment was so short was explain. So this tip came from a texter several weeks ago, which was we normally say you divide it by 4%, the annualized number of the deficit that you need. And that's the 4% rate of withdrawal. But an easier way on the calculator for some people is to multiply that deficit number by 25. It gets you to the same number, but it's representative of the same idea. We want to stay within that 4% rate of withdrawal.
Oh, yeah, I didn't get that point.
I didn't get to say it, so it was a part that kind of got left hanging, so I appreciate you coming in to do the cleanup on that.
You'll have to get that next week when you go on the show.
Right, next time when I go on at the end of this month, I think it is, I'll revisit that. But yes, so it's just like I mentioned on the show where you multiply by your tax rate, and you can do it quickly by putting a 1 in front of it, so 1.2 if it's 20% tax rate, while you're doing it quickly on the calculator. It's a little trick. Dad taught me that.
Oh, hey, your dad's so smart.
He's a pretty smart guy.
That's why they called me son. Thank you.
Yeah.
So bright.
Okay. All right. So now I understand.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thanks, Judy.
Thank you.
Love you guys. Thanks for the call again this morning. Appreciate it.
Great stuff.
And our next texter writes, I have a tier exception for a level 4 medication. Will tier exemption still be available with the elimination of the donut hole?
Yes, tier exceptions are different. So tier exceptions do go into the price that you pay. However, they are separate from the donut hole. So when you have a tier exception, what that means is you are required by your medical professional to take the brand name prescription, although there is a generic equivalent available. For some people, this is very common, for example, with Lipitor and its various generics. There's a dye that's added to the generics that some people are allergic to, so they're required to take the brand. There's a variety of reasons why you might need the brand over the generic. What the insurance company says is we'll provide you the brand name drug at the generic price. However, what you're not seeing is that the brand price is still going against the donut hole, still going against your maximum, your true out-of-pocket costs. I'm sorry, that's what it's called. Your true out-of-pocket costs with your Medicare prescription drug expenses. Next year, what will happen is you'll still have access to the tier exception, but everyone's expenses will be capped at $2,000. So another texter wrote, contrast the $2,000 cap next year with the donut hole this year. I'm in the donut hole and will spend $2,000 before I get out of it. Here's the best news. You won't have to spend money to get into the donut hole next year. So you have already spent a considerable amount of money approaching the donut hole. You're going to spend $2,000 more to get out of it. Next year, $2,000 is all you can spend. And there also won't be a two-tier. There isn't going to be a multi-tiered system in terms of what you pay. You're going to have, if you have a prescription drug plan that requires out-of-pocket, so if you have a deductible, you'll have a deductible, and then you will have co-pays. There will no longer be a gap in your coverage where you'll have to pay co-insurance, and there will no longer be catastrophic coverage. So there's going to be deductible. If your plan doesn't have a deductible, that's waived, and there will be co-pays, and those will be the only two tiers of the payment structure in Medicare moving forward. So it's really going to simplify things for people. Last week, Rob spent some extra time talking about a new provision. It's going to be called the smoothing provision that will allow you to pay the same amount throughout the course of the year versus having extraordinarily high costs at one point during the year like you might have right now.
So, for instance, if you went in, say, on January 1st, you signed up for the smoothing provision, and say your first fill was 3 weeks later, and it's $18,000. Well, you're responsible for $2,000 of that bill. You leave the pharmacy not having paid anything, and if you're part of the smoothing provision, you'll be billed $167 a month going forward until that $2,000 is satisfied. So it's a way of spreading that cost out over the course of the year, kind of like the way Aaron explained with, say, your energy bill. Like if you're using a high amount in the summer and not as much in the fall and winter, they can smooth those costs out for you so that you're not left with a giant bill for those summer months. Same kind of thing applies to your medications.
Good answers.
Awesome.
And our next texter writes, What are quote-unquote secondary fees when relating to CDs? I believe Jeff was speaking to the fees that could be charged if you try and buy a CD through a brokerage firm as opposed to going to a bank. Was that what you meant?
Yes.
Yeah, because there aren't secondary fees. There's a secondary CD market, though. That could also be part of the question, where you can buy a CD. You're not the person that bought the CD from the bank. You're buying it from the person that bought it from the bank, so to speak.
I would tend to think your lowest cost environment for that purchase would be going into the bank or credit union and going from there.
Yes, because if you purchase a CD inside of an advisory account, which is what they call it when you are paying an individual to manage your assets through a fee-based structure, if you buy the CD inside of there, you're paying fees on the CD because
so it's no different than if you were to have a bond that
right.
you put into the account. It may be sitting there and just accumulating interest. It might not be actively traded, but you're paying an advisory fee.
Because it's part of your asset total.
Right.
So we generally recommend that individuals purchase those CDs, just like Rob said, directly from the bank that's offering them. That's going to be the lowest cost place. You're going to get to capture all of your interest, less your taxes.
Yeah, and the other thing that we also do is we like to segregate those assets that we aren't going to be actively trading, like especially if someone came with us with a bond portfolio or a stock portfolio that they weren't going to sell.
We hold those in brokerage accounts.
So they don't have an advisory fee. So that's
exactly.
It's good for them.
Absolutely.
And our next texter writes, I'm turning 73 years old this year. What are the key dates that I need to be aware of when taking my first required minimum distribution? Well, sir, it looks like you've become a grown-up. And the dates you're going to have to be aware of are December 31st of last year. So that's going to be 2023, because that whatever your account ending balance was then is going to be how they determine what your required minimum distribution is. The next date you need to be aware of is December 31st of this year. That is your deadline to take said required minimum distribution. But being this is your first year of taking it, there is a small nuance. You could put that required minimum distribution off until April 1st of 2025, but with the caveat that you'd have to take 2 for that year.
And there'll be different amounts.
Correct.
Because then you're going to need to reference those same numbers again, December 31st of this year.
Exactly. So that's some of the dates you need to be aware of vis-a-vis your required minimum distribution.
If you're working with an advisor, most likely they should have already let you know what your required minimum distribution is for this year, or if you are going it yourself and making your own investment decisions, you should have received letters from the custodians or the banks that are holding your IRA assets to let you know the dollar amount from each account you're required to take. The great news, though, is you don't have to take it proportionally from each account. You just need to hit the total dollar amount reflected on all of your statements.
And our last texter writes, loved the show this morning. I plan to retire at the end of the year. Having said that, when should I call the office to arrange for a coaching session?
There you go. It's easy to do.
Right. Give our office a call.
We would certainly love to hear from you. We like to say folks that within 5 years of retirement, already retired, that's the best time to call. Easy to do. Give us a call, 314-863-0008. Again, 314-863-0008, or you can go to our website, jblfinancial.com, hit the Contact Us section, send us a little note. Our staff will be very happy to contact you, and we'll arrange a wonderful visit with us at our world headquarters in Olivet, Missouri. See you next week.
The opinions voiced in this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, and financial advisor or tax advisor prior to investing. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through Private Advisor Group, a registered investment advisor. Private Advisor Group and JBL Financial Services, Inc. are separate entities from LPL Financial.